tile course. How hard could it be?
Oh my god, my hair.
Hard.
We found paradise, heaven on our way to heaven. Been searching all my life, yeah, the map was never given.
It's like capture the flag on crack.
What's going on, everybody? How are we doing today? I'm just going to get a quick mic check on my side from Twitch. All right, cool. I can hear myself sick. I'll unmute myself because I'm tired of hearing me yap. I hope everyone's having a good day, and I hope everybody's excited. Thank you for joining us this morning. Whether you're from EU or NA, I'm here with our lead principal designer, Benny. Say hi, Benny. Wave to the camera.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm Jedi, like most of y'all know. Y'all have already seen me. I see very familiar faces in chat right now. Community manager, not much of an introduction if you haven't met Benny. Benny, just give a very short brief of who you are to these people.
Yeah, sure. So I am one of the two game designers on the game. Another Chris being the other one. I mean, hell, I don't know there's not much more beyond that. Yeah, I design stuff for the game and other part as well. We're quite a small team, so we end up doing lots of things that aren't just design. But yeah.
I guess while Chris isn't here, why don't you introduce Chris then? Who's Chris?
Chris is the other designer, and the same stuff applies to him that applies to me. We both do a lot of things that also aren't design. I mean, if I were to narrow it down a bit more, then I am more like back-end design, so more numbers and spreadsheets. Chris is more front-end stuff, so more like physical player interactions in the game. He implements. He is like an Unreal genius, so implements more advanced things in Unreal. I implement more basic things in Unreal. Even though my background is technically programmer, I should be better at that. But
well, we all learn in the field, right? That's you learn more by being thrown in the trenches or something, as they say. I don't really know, to be honest. But there you have it, guys. Benny is the person who nerfs and buffs everything. Chris Long is going to be the guy who makes a Goro Lizard have 5 arms instead of 2. But there's a lot that y'all
probably
both
not
do.
that bit.
Okay, probably not
Although
that bit.
I
Okay.
might be able to. But yeah, no. I mean, for example, if we look at the Goro Lizard, then that is one that Chris and Gibby have implemented together. So Chris being Chris, and then Gibby being one of our programmers. So Chris and I designed it, and then Chris and Gibby implemented it. Meanwhile, I do more things like implementing all the weapon stats and I make some events as well that end up in game, as in develop them, not just design them. But they tend to be the more straightforward things.
I know what the answer is, but what's your most favorite event that you've implemented into the game?
That I've implemented.
Yeah.
I mean, my answers aren't very thrilling to these things because I just like the back end numbers a lot. So anything to do with the spreadsheet, I will enjoy making. In regards to how they play out, like I like. This also sounds really weird because I like a lot of the things that don't get that much attention in some of the playtests, like the weapon replicators, the supply uplinks, like just these things as the meta evolves just become these focal points that people end up fighting over and wasting way more lives than is worthwhile doing. But yeah, just I mean, I like them all, depending on what the meta currently is. I don't like them if they become the only thing you're doing, basically. So as long as there are things you bounce between, things that vary up the game, and they all provide their own value, then I like them. And if I like them to the point if I don't do anything else, I'll probably stop liking them because they might be too good. Or on the flip side, if we don't use them enough, then I don't like them for them not being used, then we'll not make them better. For example, the base scanner, that one is awful and I need to make it better.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got time, but the correct answer was wind vortices. I think wind vortices.
That one I did implement.
Yeah, you did implement that one.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so like wind vortices was a whole Benny thing, and it wasn't even like the most planned thing out, right? You were just like, well, what happens if we just shoot ourselves super high up in the air? What happens? And it was like really cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like it came in with some intent, but we were basically wanted to create because we have a lot of events in the game. Like there are a ton of things you can interact with, of small scale to big scales. But we wanted more things that could sort of provide things without someone having to proactively go and activate it, like knowing about the location, know about timings, and take time out of the day to do it. We just want some things that are sort of always present. So to
Mhm.
begin with, the wind vortices was just one of those things. Like every so often, there might be some wind vortices in the game, and you can bounce around with them. They're basically placed and balanced, so they provide easy access to specific buildings or shortcuts over gaps and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And they will be on every so often, but they became especially among QA, a very popular thing. So we sort of just changed it to they are always on now to some extent. It's just which combination of wind vortices will be active every game is different,
Mhm.
but there will always be some.
Okay. Well, personally, like in my opinion, I think the wind vortices have also been like one of the best events that you've added into the game. I think like just overall, it just makes momentum, speed, overall velocity just so much more hectic and just generally
Yeah,
more
I mean,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, it creates like, I mean, it creates some very cool moments and it creates some fun side effects. Like for example, the power glide following a wind vortex, as long as you don't get a vortex, as long as you don't get like a heavy land, wasn't an intentional design into it. It's just like, oh yeah, of course it will pan out that way when we actually saw it. But then it's like, but it's really fun, so let's just keep it that way.
The rule of cool always applies
Yep.
in video game design.
Although there were a few cool things we had to take out though. Like we had a bit more in-air control at a time, and with that you could use wind vortices to like literally cross the entire map in about 3 to 5 seconds back and forth across, etc.
You're gonna give some of these people ideas now. They already tried.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
already tried to do
you can
that
still,
without it.
yeah, you can still chain them, just not quite as easily as they used to be able to.
Yeah. Well, enough a little bit about who we are. We've got a lot to cover today. We've got some really big news coming up, especially for the beta this weekend. What does that look like going forward? And how can you get involved? How can you participate? So let's first start off with the beta this weekend. Just for everyone, just to reiterate, we're going into open beta this weekend, starting November 8th. That's tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. GMT. So we're only going to have NA and EU servers up, I believe. And it's going to be very similar to last time. We are going to spin up NA servers most of the time as compared to EU, but for the most part, these are the two servers that we have. So for those of you who have been asking about Oceanic servers, Asian servers, unfortunately, we won't be turning them on for this beta. The more people that we see come in from that, right? Naturally, we'll spin those servers up for y'all. But y'all are still more than welcome to join those other two servers. I know ping is going to be a bit of a conversation to have, but that's just what we're going to be able to work at with capacity. Other than that, as far as and if your stream is lagging, sorry about that. Bitrate might just be a bit choppy right now. OBS didn't apply the settings. But also, whenever it comes to this weekend, all of the event is going to be running throughout the weekend. So it starts November 8th and ends November 11th. So throughout this entire weekend, we actually have a very unique game mode being implemented into this. As a matter of fact, I think having Benny here is the best person to really explain what this mode is. It's called BioCore Hyperdrive. Benny, tell us a little bit more about what this event is and what's different about it compared to our previous events.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
modes. Sorry.
yeah. So I mean, one things that we evidently can do, as we've sort of shown now, is that we built the game to be very flexible in terms of how a match plays out, how many teams there are, how many players are on teams, what the objectives are, how events unfold, and so on. And to be honest, like part of this is exploring just what sort of variations of that work as intermittent things, perhaps pseudo-permanent things, and so on. But yeah, so the one we're trying out now is, like I said, BioCore Hyperdrive, and it's meant to be a bit of a quickfire mode. On one hand, it is the one. I don't want to sound like I'm belittling people, but it is one that's aimed a little bit more at newer players as well. For the people who sort of just put on the whatever those things are called on the road, race horses, and just tunnel vision onto A. This is definitely the tunnel vision on A game mode. So it's a bit more a quickfire mode. There's only one BioCore in it, 4 teams, 2 players each. One BioCore as mentioned. The max duration of the game is shorter, so it's 20 minutes max as opposed to 30 minutes. The The time it takes to stabilize A is also shorter, so it will get moving faster. But obviously, depending on exactly what the teams do, you might have more or less time doing things you might otherwise be used to doing in other games. It's going to be a bit more chaotic, but at the same time, you can probably also rely on other teams to do a bit more contesting. So that will be going on. There will be, so you will see some standard 14-2, 3 biocores regular mode mixed in with this. So it won't be just this. It will be both the modes, sort of just frog leaping each other basically. So you'll see some of both. But yeah, so this one is, like I said, it's mainly focused on being more of a quick fire, heavy action, chaotic game, more so than like a slow tactical game.
And just
give you a taste of both.
Yeah, and just to confirm too, this is going to be a duos weekend event. So it's 2v2v2v2, 4 teams of 2 on both sides. So it's the normal standard 3 biocores event or mode that you have, and also the biocore hyperdrive guys. And as far as how you access both of them, it's randomly queued. So it's like a 50-50, right? Like 50% chance you'll get the standard duos, and then a 50% chance you'll get the biocore hyperdrive. That's correct, right?
Yep, that's correct.
All right.
So I mean, that's also why we are doing duos across the board for this weekend. In that it won't be predetermined. We don't want to split the user base up between 2 queues, so it won't be predetermined which one you get into. And what we found so far with testing, at least, is that hyperdrive benefits from not quite as many teams, because it becomes a real stalemate if there are too many on one biocore, and also slightly smaller teams. That basically the breathing room between fights is a little bit wider with smaller teams for that, so that the biocore can actually get moving across the map. So you get those tugs of war through the forest and actually get to secure it, as opposed to just fighting at A for the entire match with trios or 5 teams.
Yeah, awesome. And there's a couple of changes inside of that too, such as live pool that you start out with. But generally speaking, like the entire
yes, sorry, I didn't mention that. Sort of interrupting, normally duos has 4 extra life per player. In hyperdrive, there are only 3, so you will go out 1 life sooner than normal. And obviously, there's also only 1 biocore to provide with lives when you capture it, so there are few lives coming into the game mode as well.
You can't find lives though around the world.
You can still find them, but you might find that you have less time to search for them.
Yeah,
the game mode tends to move a bit faster.
Yeah, so make sure y'all guys, pay attention to that power. Make sure you pay attention to the to wilderness as well. I mean, I think the most common thing I've seen missed is people utilizing the wilderness and missing life plants. I don't think I've really seen anybody actually talk about life plants in our Discord or anything like that. And they're out there. They're usually pretty late game items or late game events, but like they're out there, guys.
So one thing to know about them, if you do come across a big, mostly red and green plant with like sparkling golden shimmers about it, that is one of the life plants. If there is sparkling shimmers there, it means that it hasn't spawned a life yet. If there is no sparkly shimmery thing, then it means that someone's already taken the life. You don't have to worry about it. But yeah, normally they tend to spawn in towards late game. So off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact curve there, but usually like around 20 minutes plus minus some minutes. In hyperdrive, all events that are sort of late games have been cut down a bit, so they dynamically scale to the length. So those things, be it like reactor meltdowns, life plants, will pop in a bit sooner instead.
All right. Well, that's a pro tip from Benny right there. So make sure y'all guys pay attention to it, because life plants honestly always come in clutch for me. What I like to do whenever I'm with like a squad is like whenever we're just completely out of lives, I'm not gonna just straight up beeline the last biocore and I'm on 0 lives. I'm actually gonna spend some time out in the wilderness, maybe find an extra life or 2, because power I might be short on, and time I'm definitely short on. So a life plant usually comes in handy if you know exactly where to look for it. All right, so that's a little bit more. That's just a bit about Biocore Hyperdrive, everybody. This is a new mode, naturally, for y'all guys, but also us as well. So whenever the event goes live this weekend with beta, be sure to give us feedback. Use the Discord, tell us what you think about it. We should also have like the in-game surveys as well. So leave your feedback, tell us what you love, tell us what you see as opportunity, tell us what you hate. All things in between, are really helpful for us for the development. Moving on, I really want to talk about some changes. So we're going to have a list of patch notes available for everybody later today, I believe at 8 p.m. GMT. So that'll be at around, I believe, 1 p.m. PST, 2 p.m. CST. we're not going to go over the entire list of changes here because that would make us stay here for a very long time. So I really want to dive into just some key things that I think most of the community would like to know more about. Benny, talk to me a little bit more about the weapon changes that have come into this. And this is
Yep.
your numbers game right here. This is all you.
Yep. So there are. So these are based off of two things we just learned over time. We've always been working on this game for quite a while, and over that while, the map has changed a lot. How weapons are used and how they're set up have changed quite a bit. So one of the learnings we've taken from recent playtests is sort of the effectiveness at different combat encounters at different ranges, and where and how combat encounters tend to take place. And a lot of the balancing that goes into weapons, especially when you're looking at weapons that are meant to be differently effective at different ranges, are obviously impacted by how often and how likely am I to have encounters in those ranges. How easy is it to use the map to manipulate a fight or manipulate the movement around a fight to sort of take advantage of different ranges. And it has skewed closer than what we used to have in older versions of the map. So we've done a pretty big balancing pass to sort of accommodate for that. So mainly, so that's one of the two factors. The other one is just cutting down on, tightening the gap a bit between different types of sniper rifles, but I'll touch on that in a bit. So the first one is mostly around battle rifles and plasma rifles, where battle rifles are sort of the primarily close to mid-range automatic weapons, and plasma rifles are meant to be more like mid to long range. And plasma rifles have sort of fallen a bit out of favor due to that shift in combat ranges. So we are making quite a lot of changes to those weapons, just on the number side. So with battle rifles in particular, we have, actually for both of them, but the impact this has on battle rifles is that we've basically changed how we work with fall off and effective ranges in terms of as a little lever or just a little thing to pull at when balancing different weapons. So we have mainly changed how fall off damage is scaled and how valuable it is for a module to obtain or let go of. So the fall off penalties on various battle rifles, especially close range ones and like rapid fire modules, have been made a bit more severe. So we've amped up how much damage they lose over distance. We have also we made some changes to. So we made a lot of changes to the close range battle rifle in fall off, so that they are less effective at longer ranges than they are close range. We have also made some changes to semi-automatic triggers in general. So the semi-automatic battle rifles, as a completely standalone point, we're just behaving a little bit too well in certain circumstances. So the bonus damage that you get from using semi-automatic triggers over automatic triggers has gone down a bit. However, we haven't really wanted to hit heavy battle rifles that hard because they were meant to be sort of the mid to slightly longer range, and that was the less useful territory to fight in often. So on the flip side of that, we have given the heavy battle rifles a bit more damage, and also in some cases taken off less of the fall-off penalties we talked about before. Same with semi-automatic; they have not lost as much in fall-offs as the rapid triggers have. Mm-hmm. For plasma rifles, that's probably the bigger change, that we have just ramped up all plasma rifle damage except for surge plasma rifles. So surge plasmas staying the same in this regard. We've also given all plasma rifles except for surge more bullet velocity, 25% faster bullets. So hitting targets at distance will be a bit easier, and they pack a bit heavier punch now. We've also shifted up all of the slow firing plasma rifle modules, so things that really chug, like the dunk 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 style plasmas. That's what we call them.
Somebody clip that. We're making that into a soundboard.
Yeah, there we go. So they have all received a decent bump in damage output as well. And I mean, there's also a ton of just minor tweaks to various modules across the board, but those are like the big changes. More damage to plasma rifles, fewer fall-off penalties to some of the plasma rifle modules, and the slow chugging plasmas are now even more impactful. And then on the flip side of that, again, making the rapid fire battle rifles less impactful over range. Then we got the sniper rifles, where we basically just looked at giving some more. So we've been reducing the potential burst damage from snipers a bit, while also uplifting the overall performance of light and energy snipers, which has sort of fallen a little bit to the wayside. So we've reduced all headshot multipliers from sniper rifles across the board, but for the light and energy snipers, we have sort of compensated that a bit by bringing up the base damage. So when a light or energy would do 50 body damage before, they now do 60, which makes up for most of the loss in headshot damage, but not quite. And energy snipers have also given a bigger buff to their bullet velocity, so they're now by quite a big margin the fastest traveling sniper rifle bullet. So if you just want long range accuracy, energy snipers should now be a better choice. I think like those are probably the big beats across the weapons. I mean, there's a lot more detail, but you can find that in the patch notes.
Yep. Yeah, patch notes will go out later today, guys, just a little bit after the stream. We're going to get all our eggs in one basket and do what the old marketing team wants to do on this one. So this is just a quick insight, quick foresight. You know, we want to say hi, get on camera. Benny in particular, he put on he put on his hair for this one. Today, whenever it comes to the weapon balances and changes in this, can you quickly just brief us on like how you looked at the other play tests previously for these weapon changes that you made? Because I know that we don't want to be as super reactionary to specific metas that are found, but at the same time, we do find things that are happening in between. Games, whether that's, one player who's brand new experience as a player with a crazy souped up custom weapon versus, two people who have crazy souped up custom weapons. How do you react to that? And how do you plan to implement those changes? Just not like a full overview on it, right? But, the reactionary part, I think people would like to know a little bit more on like what that looks like on the design side of things.
So the intent is, So the intent is never to nerf something to the ground. We want more things to be viable options. Sometimes that means reducing the effectiveness of certain things. I mean, the reality is that whenever people start playing with them, we're getting like thousands, tens of thousands of playtest hours in very, very quickly compared to what we do with like smaller teams. So historically, how we have been doing this is that a lot of the so I'm going to go through the balancing process sort of from the start almost, but it sort of starts with a lot of math, just in terms of on paper calculations for how effective a weapon might be given different ranges, how much recoil shifts. Like, for example, if you're fighting someone at 20 meters range, what does 0.06 degrees of recoil do to the size of your target? Relatively speaking, if you can counter X amount of said recoil, how much more likely are you to miss if we increase that by 2%? And so that's the sort of math that drives the base values. The big factor in that as well, that sort of echoes back to the first point I made, is that some of the earliest things we did were very raw testing. Like we're just trying to find the big variables to balance around, like encounter ranges is a big one of those. Like across the map, across many games, many permutations of maps, what sort of encounters do people tend to fight at? When do certain weapons, how much uptime do certain weapons see, and then how effective are they in those windows compared to other things? And that's like the biggest thing that has changed in regards to the change we just made now, is that if we look back to the playtest, so when we've done this internally before, when we haven't done like this big playtest, we tend to run sessions, like week-long sessions, where we have X amount of people that play in fixed teams with very fixed weapon setups, playing matches just day in, day out, and record all the stats. And they flip between different setups, and then we see sort of how different people at different skill levels compare to each other, or compare to not each other necessarily, but relatively speaking, how effective can they be with certain weapons? And obviously, different weapons will also shine at different levels of play. Like we see beam gloves being more effective at low end play, for example, than high end play. We're seeing sniper rifles on the flip side being more effective at high end play. And and those factors are those are like the big forces behind changes. So, for example, the map itself has been a big contributing factor to this, because we've worked on the map now for, I mean, it's come and gone in different iterations for about 4 years now. And it has looked quite different. We have learned what plays better, what areas need to be reworked, and so on. But every time we rework an area, we're also changing how you can navigate around the map and what sort of combat encounters you might expect to get. And as more areas start shifting around the map, the thing that sort of caught up to us now was the fact that we've actually been sort of actively reducing some of the encounter distances compared to what all those numbers were balanced around. So if we look at things like, let's say we're creating a new module. So for the sake of balancing that module and setting a price on it in terms of how much does it cost me to buy a weapon with this module in a match, how much time do I need to put in to gather enough power to afford it, or how lucky do I need to be to kill someone else who already has that power. So basically what it comes down to with those things is what value does increasing my effective range by 5 meters, 10 meters have on the average outcome of a fight? How much improvement do I receive for sacrificing, or how many points do I get spare effectively in the budget if I sacrifice 10% of the shape of that curve over long ranges? And even things like I mentioned with the recoil and spread, those are also quite heavily determined by the type of combat range you encounter, because obviously the further away someone is, the more a small change in recoil, the more impact a small change in recoil will have. So when we have been balancing those to sort of slightly different numbers, we have treated in the past, we've treated the values, so the punishments to recoil, or the negative values we put onto certain recoil stats, like, oh, this weapon can get X amount more damage or more fire rate or whatever it might be because it suffers in recoil. We've sort of valued that too highly, because the fights actually take place closer range, where the relative change in angles compared to your target and how hard it is to maintain the crosshair on your target actually isn't as hard as those stats thought it would be. So that's been the main driving factor for the changes now to to plasma rifles and battle rifles. So this one is it's not a complete overhaul. It is just, it looks like a really big change, but it's a really big change driven by a very small set of numbers, which is just obviously, like, people don't fight in box A or box B. There's a big spectrum. We have a curve for what sort of ranges do we expect people to fight at around the map on average, and also how what flexibility do you have to take advantage of a gun that really shines in one of those areas? Because just because you have a gun that can't, because you're using right now a gun that can't fight at long ranges, doesn't mean you can't carry a second gun that can do that. So weapons that are really specialized in certain areas might not really feel the impact of the penalty to those things. We also exacerbated that a little bit. So, for example, ultra rapid triggers on battle rifles, which are meant to be these quite close range things, have been more like, we've exaggerated those values a bit. So cool, we want to push it more into close range combat, not so much mid to long range. So stronger fall off penalties, for example, or higher recoil values. So what looks like a lot of small changes are sort of driven by the same one fundamental difference that we're looking at. And I mean, another reality is also that there are literally millions of combinations of weapons you can create in the game. And while the maths are trying to cater for what those combinations can be, they're always going to be like these little circumstances we can min-max a few different stats together, like a few different modules happen to cancel out particular punishments in a very efficient way. And those are, I guess, the bit more easy to knee-jerk at things. It's not to kill exploration or creativeness. It's just that certain stats can multiply really strongly together. Like if two correct stats amplified multiplicatively, then the benefit of that is just like, oh, well, this will just get out of hand unless we just do some tweaks to it. So it's quite easy to, when we spot something that deserves a knee-jerk reaction, they stand out quite well, because those are basically going to be the multiplicative factors, or at least the ones that have strong multiplying forces that can be applied together. So, for example, one of the things that we've preemptively done with the higher base damage on engine snipers and higher projectile speed is that you also find that some of the modules for energy snipers that increase damage by a large amount have had their values brought down a little bit. Also made them cheaper. We haven't done that just for no trade-off. They also become a bit cheaper to equip as a result. But just because the ease of use and multiplying that damage bonus on an already higher base value obviously results in big potential for like body shots, 2 taps at range and stuff like that. So to avoid passing some of those thresholds as well is when we're doing what might seem like knee-jerk reaction sometimes, but it's just basically to pull it down below a certain breakpoint.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that's a very long answer. You're saying that the combat range will be closer than we thought it would be, or what historically we have had in the map.
Yeah. And just so like everyone kind of understands this, right? It's just from what Benny's saying, as far as what we could summarize, right? A lot of changes that are made also reflect on the overall like framework of the design. You know, he talked about how the map needs to have some sort of structure in there to ensure that these weapons react both, you know, well statistically, but also emotionally well inside of the game. Is it fun, and is it also doing what it's expected to be doing?
Yeah, like we don't want, for example, we don't want a one type of weapon to overlap too badly with niches that are meant to be held by other weapons, because effectively what that does long term that we don't like is that it pushes diversity out of the game. Like we want people to be able to design different types of weapons for different circumstances, and the more one weapon gets to shine across several of those circumstances, the less design space there is for other weapon types to shine. And also actually on the effective range, one thing that is a lot less tangible, I guess, as a design factor is that for a long time when we designed the game, go back to effective range again, sorry, is that we also play the game in gray box because we want to be able to adapt and change the map very, very quickly. So we didn't invest a lot of time into like real detailed art and so on. So we played with big, simple shapes, easy to move buildings and assets in general. So there were certain things that we had less of, like there was less soft cover, for example. But also the big one that was sort of hard to take into account was the natural amount of noise levels that come with more realistic looking assets. Like when you're fighting against a completely gray background at range, seeing enemy movements and so on is a lot easier. Like picking out a lime and green person against a gray background is dark gray background even is very easy to do. So so things like plasma rifles and basic sniper rifles that didn't need to sort of just take advantage of that one shot you have before you lose your target behind cover, or if it takes too long to spot them. Like just the amount of time it takes to see an enemy was so much easier back when we were playtesting in those environments. And that's also one of the things that shifted the combat encounters to actually be on average closer, because sometimes it's just that it takes that one extra half second to spot where your enemy is, and by that point they're closer to another bit of cover. So when you then start unloading into them with the plasma rifle, they're close to diving into cover again. Whereas in grey box land, those bullets start raining in much sooner, and you would therefore have more uptime against targets at distance as well.
Okay. Well, that was a lot about the weapon changes that we have. Look forward to the
sorry, there's
breakdown.
one more thing I'm going to cover,
bring
which
it.
is just because it was a bit of an outlier as well. These are more these actually perk and specific module changes, but we also tweaked modules and perks that deal damage to passengers and vehicles in particular. We have lowered. So if you are killing. So a load against a Deathbringer, I should say. So in general, those things now have less damage against Deathbringers. And speaking of Deathbringers, we have also added a small amount of basically invulnerability frames, immunity window to the cluster bombs from the Deathbringer. So like with normal sniper cluster strikes, if you get hit by a cluster from a Deathbringer cannon, it will now render you immune to further damage from clusters for half a second, which mainly impacts you sort of getting just instant nuked by getting caught in a tight space from that cannon where everything explodes at once and just instantly kills you. So we've reduced the burst damage from the Deathbringer in particular, while also making the passengers who encounter Volt Flux magazines or the Metal Melter perk a bit less quick to kill.
I think Deathbringer is a good one here that you're bringing up too, because Deathbringer is one of our, I would say, most visible events, right? Let's quickly talk about just very briefly about it because there's not a huge change coming to this, Mr. Gore Lizard mind control. What changes have we seen with this one?
I mean, one change we actually made partway through the last beta, which was that we reduced its health a bit. That's why people might have seen like there was a bit of blank space in the health bar, because as part of turning it on indefinitely throughout the back end of the playtest the last weekend, we also didn't want to be too much of a pest, so we lowered its max health, and we found it actually played pretty well. So we've kept that lowered amount of health, so it does have lower health still. We've also made it clearer still when someone gets the Gore Lizard, so there should not be a much more audible roar when a person gets into it. So you're prepared for it being in the game before you necessarily seen it or been stumped by it. So it should be easier to be ready for it now. And again, it has that slightly lower health pool as well.
Yeah. All right.
I should also say that the health pool does scale to how many people are in a match. So duos, it has lower health pool than in games of trios.
Yep, precisely. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up a lot of weapons and events here. As far as additional changes, quickly, let's just speed run through it here. Movement updates. So we do have a speed bonus that's been changed specifically for people who are running with a pistol and with beam gloves, as a matter of fact. We're not literally like, sliding like Shadow the Hedgehog all over the place with this, are we?
No, not quite. So there's always been we've always had a slight, speed bonus if you're using pistol or beam gloves, and a speed penalty if you're carrying a biocore. So we've changed that a bit now because, frankly, a lot of people didn't realize that there was a speed bonus to do with pistols and beam gloves because it was small enough that it was impactful but not felt. So we made sure it can now be felt. So that used to be just 5%, now it's 15%. So that speed can certainly be felt more. That also means that you have bigger speed boosts when you go into slides, stuff like that. So the velocity you can get sliding downhill is also faster as a result. We have also, because we don't want the biocore to get away too easily, we have also changed so the biocore carrier does not get any bonuses from item-specific speed bonuses, but they also don't suffer penalty anymore. So your biocore carriers will now move at normal speed, and other players can enhance that by 15% with pistol beam gloves out.
All right, good to hear. One thing, and we talked about this very briefly before we started this, is movement is constantly, I think, one of the top, I want to say 5 things in terms of a category that are brought up, amongst many other, 4 other things. But movement in particular, we get a lot of this question, which is, are we adding wall bouncing to the game? And the short answer, everybody, I'll answer that and let Benny explain. Like, no. But Benny, tell us why no.
No, we have no immediate plans to do that. The thing is, like, unlike what some people might want to hear, like, keep bringing those suggestions, like, give us crazy ideas, because sometimes it's really hard to implement at a base level, like always on in the game, because the map has been designed with certain restrictions in mind, and changing those is a big undertaking. And we still have improvements we want to make to just the fundamental movement system we already have. We want to make sliding better, climbing better. So before we start thinking about adding more things to the soup there, we want to improve what we have already. And also, so there are obviously big repercussions just in development time and having to redirect resource onto, because we are a very small team, so redirecting resources away from something means that something else just isn't getting done. So in that regard, like, these sort of big changes are hard to make, especially when they also have like big level design implications. That said, suggestions like that are still good, because there are things we can still do with those sort of mechanics potentially in the future when it comes to items or consumables you can find, events that you might have, or map modifiers. I mean, the wind vortices is one of those examples where we didn't have effectively bounce pads everywhere across the game, because there were certainly some concerns about how the timings of certain map angles could be affected by it. Like, obviously, how you spawn around the map and how long it takes to get to certain points had been quite carefully mapped out, and to some extent, wind vortices can really disrupt that. But it was fun enough that we decided to take that plunge anyway, and sort of just meticulously sit there and craft all the balancing values in where they are allowed to be and which ones can be on at the same time and so on, to to try to make it work anyway.
Yeah.
And that's sort of something that just became like, oh, we'll make that an event. We used to have a consumable that basically was a wind vortex, where you had an item you can place anywhere and be a bounce pad. But because of the freedom, it couldn't be as extreme as we wanted it to be, and that's where like turning that sort of like core mechanic into event instead gives us more flexibility with like letting it be big and impactful because we have more control of exactly where you do it.
Mhm.
And that's where things like wall bounces or double jumps and those sort of things, like hook shots, etc., can start coming in.
Yeah, and thank you for answering that. I feel like this is a big conversation, right? Like we live in an industry of movement shooters at the moment, right? There's not gonna say their names out loud. There's Two Fault Titan. There's Legends Apex, and like there's even Sonic. Movement in particular is such a big part of the game, right? And as you mentioned,
Mr.
there's other
Tribes.
things. There's other things that we want to improve on before we can like just completely tear down the game and start redoing so much to the map to make it fit this specific.
Yes, I mean the map is often the big sort of I don't want to say obstacle but there's also a like there's certain things we want to embrace with the game. There's certain thing like movement is really important. I don't want to sound like we don't want to improve movements because, like I said, we do want to improve things, and that's also why we've changed movement speed now with pistols as well to just make movement a bit faster, a bit more fluid. But yeah, we still want to improve things like sliding. We have a long list of improvements still to make to that, and climbing especially as well.
Mhm.
And like, well, we're always happy to take ideas, and like I said, they can turn into an event or an item, sometimes even core functionality. Like because we're a quite small team, we still have plenty of things to do. It's not going to end up on the near future roadmap really,
Yeah.
unless it's something that we completely missed out on. Like, oh god, we need to do this.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is the case, to be honest. Sometimes that happens.
So for everyone listening right now, whenever it comes to feedback around this, right, never stop giving us the suggestion. As Benny said, like if you want to give us a crazy cool idea, like keep talking about it. But work with us on the things that we're trying to implement now. On how can those things be improved. Everything is always an area of opportunity, and perspectives are always very diverse. But we've got some work to do before we can again, as Benny said, like just stop everything just to work on another thing. So keep the feedback coming. Make sure that your voice is heard by leaving it in Discord, the surveys that we put out as well, because without it, we won't be able to really do anything about it, and we can't either give you a conversation about it as well. So yeah, let's close it up and wrap it up on movement here. Last few speed round things. UI. So we have made some new changes around the UI, guys. I wish I had an image to show you because it actually looks super dope. But we have a new matchmaking screen, and it looks very pretty. Things are much more clear, much more transparent on like what it is that you're queuing up for, and as well as like a new mission progress screen. So now instead of just getting like this crazy cool number that flashes lightning, a guitar riff plays, it says level 13 or something like that. You'll now see a progression of like where you are, what you're unlocking with your levels, right? Like you'll be able to see what it is.
That exact thing is not in this build.
Okay,
that
not
is
that
future
one.
content.
Shit. Y'all didn't hear that. Unhear it.
Yeah, so there are more things coming. We're working through a bunch of UI overhauls, and some things are in this build. Not everything that Jedi is talking about, though.
Y'all heard nothing. I'm
that's fine.
gaslighting y'all.
No, we are. So we are. Yeah, no, there will be changes coming to progression, the transparency around what you get with progression, highlighting the rewards you'll be getting, and also eventually make it easier, or like explain better how to access those things. But yeah, for now, it's trickling some of those in. So we have put in the new matchmaking screen to this, and more screens will sort of start getting some visual overhauls like that. There's some more information on the mission progress screen at the end of the match, partially because we're running an event this weekend, which has new features we needed. That's why we shoved these things in. So I should say actually that what you play, I mean, this might be obvious to some, but what you play this weekend, or any weekend for that matter, is always a few weeks behind of where we currently are, obviously, because we need to take a build sometime before the playtest so we can stabilize it and test it and so on, make sure that it's actually working, because when people are in the middle of making things can and often do break. And we work pretty quickly. Like that is something we are actually pretty good at as a small team, is just getting through things pretty quickly. So There are always other things that are just around the corner.
Yeah. No, genuinely, guys, like, I'll just say it, but I'm not saying what it is. It's not official, but like Thunderdome. That's all I'm gonna say. Thunderdome. Thunderdome. Remember it, chat. All right. Well, I think I only had you for about 45 minutes. Not sure if you had more time to, sit around, chat a little bit more, but we've covered majority of the things that I believe is most prevalent to, tomorrow's beta and the rest of the weekend. Any final words that you wanted to say before I kick you out of here and close up the stream?
No, I mean, I hadn't planned anything at all. I'm just whatever you want to talk about, I'll talk about.
Okay.
So I have nothing planned. No.
All right, cool. I'm not kicking you off. All right, so guys, let's quickly talk about top dogs because I see a lot of top dogs in here. I see a lot of insiders in here, and most of y'all already know this. But this is more on the conversation of what's happening with top dogs and the upcoming Turf Wars event. So we're like this. Consider this like the technical official announcement before we put it out live on Twitter and like all of our other social posts. Top Dogs Turf Wars is a 5K prize pool expansion of the existing Top Dogs experience. So everything that you remember from the previous Top Dogs event is carrying over, but we're adding a series system to it in the form of a qualifier and in the form of a lower bracket system, technical lower bracket system. Let's call it that. The way that this is going to work is creators who have registered to become a top dog will do literally nothing different. You'll sign up, you'll get your logo in game, you'll share it with your community and encourage your community to join the game, join your clan, and help you and your clan get to the top of the leaderboard. What's different about this though is this weekend is our qualifiers. So the qualifiers is actually I would call it the most important week besides the next week, which is going to be the finals. The qualifiers is going to consist of 4 teams total. Those are going to be the top 2 high tier bracket pool, and then 1 team from the mid tier bracket pool, and then a 1 team from the low tier bracket pool, not tool. Sorry about that. Whenever it comes to the structure of this, we're going to have 4 teams that qualify for the finals at the very end of the month. We'll communicate more about that here later, especially whenever it comes to our post later today. But 4 teams qualify, and there are other top dogs in here as well that also have we'll call it a redemption shot at earning some of that prize pool. So the split right now, and let me just double check because we made some changes yesterday to that prize pool because someone's really bad at math, me. But in this case, our changes to the prize pool are as follows. So the finals is around a $3,000 prize pool for the qualifiers. So that's the Top Dogs Turf Wars finals right there. It's $3,000. And then we have the underdogs, which has a $2,175 prize pool. And how that split is between 2 events. So the finals is going to be on the 22nd, 23rd. We'll communicate that. That $3,000 prize pool will be split between 8 different people based on your score placement. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And then for underdogs, you didn't make it into the top 4. You have a 1 to 50th placement chance to earn some of that $2,175. So at first place for underdogs, while the finals is kicking off, the entirety of the underdogs weekend, you'll have you and your community actually battle it out in a free-for-all for placements here. So there's not going to be a grander tournament style where we're pairing you, with your community to play as a team and, in a private match. This will still be the normal way you play. It's just at the end of the entirety of the event, whoever is at the top of the leaderboards, the global leaderboards 1 through 50, gets some prizing in there, and we'll communicate all of that. It's a lot of numbers and it's a lot of words and a lot of talking, and I can't lisp as much as more as I can right now without like cringing right now. So look forward to the announcement, guys. There's a lot of questions that you will probably have, so definitely give them to us in Discord. I don't have too much time with the stream, unfortunately, to answer every single question, which brings me to the next segue right here. So that's all I have to say about Top Dogs right now. Top Dogs in the chat right now, if you're watching, make sure you are encouraging as many people to join your clan because you're going to need it. Your clan is super important to your success here. So the more people you have, the higher your chance you're going to have more points to your clan name and the higher chance that you'll be able to participate in the qualifier. Last is looking forward. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing behind the scenes, right? Besides making a video game, we're also trying to plan out community transparency, trying to plan out more events for the community, not just for Top Dogs, and also trying to give you a little bit more visibility on what's happening back here as well. So expect a lot more of these things to happen, and it starts with this weekend. So this weekend we're kicking off our, I would call it 2-week betas per month leading up to launch, and we don't, the launch date has not been announced, guys. Y'all keep asking, don't have an announcement just yet. You'll know it when you see it. But we're going to try and accomplish at least two betas per month, and that's always going to tie in with a Top Dogs experience as well. So next month, it might be a higher prize pool. Next month, it might not have a prize pool. You never know. It really depends on, how awesome these events go, and what kind of feedback we receive as well. So keep an eye out for, more ways to play, especially whenever it comes to the events that we're really trying to cater to the overall experience during these beta weekends. And as I mentioned before, visibility and more transparency on things that are happening. Expect a little bit more communication on the community side of things. What is happening to the game whenever there's no patch notes to really release, right? What is happening behind the scenes of new events that we're building up that we want to show off a little bit before we can actually release it into the masses. So keep an eye on it. We're excited to talk a lot more with y'all. And again, it takes a village, right? Everybody in Discord, I see nothing but constant hype about this game, and there's always questions to be asked and answered naturally. So expect events like this, streams like this to happen on the first week of the month. Not the first week of the month, but we'll call it the first beta weekend of the month. And then expect a community staging call in our Discord at the end, so that way we can kind of have an honest conversation. Benny may be there, Benny may not be there. Honestly, it's up to him. But it'll be me really going through the feedback on what we're seeing, what I've seen through Discord. What are some wins? What are some opportunities? What am I seeing in terms of y'all's feedback to tell y'all, hey, y'all are seen, y'all are heard. Let me take it all in. Let's have that conversation about it. Bring y'all guys on speak mode as well to kind of ask questions directly to us, to see what we can do to rectify any confusion or accept feedback generally. Not all feedback is going to be made the next day. It does take time for us to implement a couple of these things, but again, this is just a part of the transparency that we want to be able to provide the community here. So expect Twitch streams on the first week of each weekend beta weekend. Sorry, this retainer is hard to talk with. And then expect a Discord community Q&A at the end of the second beta weekend, and we'll keep that consistent. So right now we have the November 8th one starting tomorrow. Play the game. Let us know how it is. We'll keep a close eye on Top Dogs, particularly for qualifiers, and then especially for underdogs as well. And then on the, November 22nd, that's our second beta weekend. Keep an eye out on more announcements around that. What changes we've implemented, what other things that we're expecting to implement in terms of updates, Thunderdome, other things. Keep an eye out. That's all I could say, guys. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Benny, any last words that you want to lead everybody?
No, I don't really do speeches, but no, I'm obviously looking forward to the weekend. I'll be playing the entire time rather myself as well. So
yeah, expect a lot of the studio to be playing, guys. Y'all guys will notice that y'all are playing with them sometimes. Look for that little crown. If you see the little crown, that's an official PlayFusion employee right there. It's a developer. Thank you again, everybody, for your time today. I really do appreciate it. Benny, as usual, thank you for your time, especially with the short notice scrappiness of this. But hopefully the next stream that we do will have much more to really show during the stream. I know you probably aren't really watching the stream right now, but usually there should be slides. There should be some images to kind of show things off. So anyone watching, expect a better presentation of all these changes that we're making. Alrighty, guys. Thanks so much. I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's day. Look forward to patch notes and as well more Top Dogs information later today. And then we'll see you in the beta starting tomorrow. Peace out.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
trial course. How hard could it be?
Oh my god, my hair.
Hard.
We found paradise. Heaven on our way to heaven. Been searching all my life. Yeah, the map was never given.
It's like capture the flag on